Yo, yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a brand new week and welcome to a brand new edition of what we like to call Shifting the Culture. I am your host, Conscious Kurt, in the flesh as always, and this man needs no introduction, but he's going to give you one anyway. Break it down for us.
Yo, what up, world? This is King Khan, live and direct from the ATL. Thank you for joining us on the fourth episode of Shifting the Culture podcast, which is a podcast created by hip hop heads for hip hop heads. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Yes, and here on Shifting the Culture, we talk about the different artists and different events that have impacted hip hop culture and also continue to still impact hip hop culture today. So, with that being said, King Khan, how was your weekend? What you been up to? How's everything going for you?
Weekend was pretty chill. I went to the course, shot a little hoops with my son. So that was pretty dope to do. Other than that, just kind of chilled out and recharged for the week. But how about you? How was your weekend?
Weekend was a little uneventful. Yesterday, I just spent some time working on a little music, did a little exercise, caught up on some horror movies since it's Halloween season. So yeah, I had a nice little
Okay.
chill Sunday yesterday. But as far as like going to some crazy ass Halloween parties or anything along those lines, that did not exactly happen.
All right. Well, it's still not Halloween yet. You still got a couple more days. Maybe you can get to a party and whatnot.
Yes, and let's send a happy birthday out to our dad who turns 70 years old tomorrow.
Yeah, shouts out to him, to the OG.
Yeah, with his bright ass outfits too.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and speaking of hoops, I know you were talking about hoops a second ago, shooting them with your son over the weekend, but this past Tuesday actually was the start of the NBA season. We had a lot of cool games, a lot of interesting storylines already starting already, and also my personal favorite, the return of Inside the NBA. One of my favorite shows, in all honesty, in some cases, watching that show is more entertaining than some of the games themselves. And I want to ask, as a longtime basketball head, what did you think of the first week of the NBA season?
Well, the first week, I don't really put too much stock in the first week because most of the time, the players, most of them are not even in shape yet, and there's a lot of trades and players changing teams. So the first week is like kind of like everybody feeling themselves out. But it was good to see like some of the new players like Dame Dollar on the Bucks, and also to see the Nuggets and see the Lakers. So it was good to see some of those teams after all of the changes that they made in the offseason. So it was good to see them, but I would say, we got to give them a few weeks to get back in shape, and then we'll see like towards around Christmas time, we'll see what's going on and who got better this year.
Yeah, there were some fun games here and there. For instance, one that we should have gone to on Friday night, the Knicks and the Hawks game, which actually came down to the wire, and our Knicks actually won. And you have no idea how badly I was kicking myself for not going to that game. Motherfucker.
Yeah, I was kind of mad I didn't get to go, but they play again in a few weeks, so hopefully I can go to that one. And I think that one is part of like the NBA's first in season tournament, so that should be dope to see how that comes about. I know some people were giving it some, because it's the first time, it's new. So some people were giving it some pushback, but I say just, come with an open mind and let's see how it goes. It might be something entertaining and might make people be more involved with the regular season because everybody waits to the playoffs. So maybe this will make the regular season a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, and also they're like really cracking down on like, resting players for no reason, which I understand, like unless they're hurt or unless it's like the very end of the season where like their record is already set and all that, it's messed up to rest players, especially when like it's a big marquee game, like a televised like Saturday night game. Yeah, that shit's not a good look, and I'm happy that they're kind of cracking down on that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to spend, a lot of people, they spend mad money just to go to a game, and then imagine if you spend all that money and then the player you want to see like a LeBron or let's say Kyrie or somebody along those lines, and then they're not even playing, and then you're spending all that money to go to a game that like is pretty much worthless. So I understand where the NBA is coming from on that perspective.
Yeah, because there'd be certain times, especially a few seasons ago, where I'd be like all hyped up for like the Saturday night game or the Sunday afternoon game. And then right when I put on the countdown, they say like all the star players aren't playing. I'm like, you motherfuckers. It's
Yeah, and
not,
then
then
that
are they hurt? You like, unless they're hurt or unless like it's a like emergency or something, yeah, that's some whack ass shit.
yeah, it's whack. So hopefully they crack down and on that this year, and we'll get to see more of the players that we love to watch. So hopefully we get that figured out. They don't sit out as many games.
And also, one cool thing that happened last night was it was officially the 20-year anniversary of LeBron's first NBA game. And the team he played last night was, ironically enough, the team he played in his first NBA game 20 years ago, being the Sacramento Kings. And unfortunately, him and the Lakers fell to the Kings in overtime. But it was cool to see that visual of like his first dunk, like in that game 20 years ago and his dunk in the game last night. It was cool that, things kind of went full circle that way and that he played that team of all teams. And yo, it's crazy. 20 years LeBron has been in the league. That shit is fucking incredible.
He's definitely taking care of his body and he put in the work. So you could see that it's paid off. And I haven't seen any other player be in the league this long and play at such a high level as LeBron. So much props to LeBron, one of the legends, and will go down to probably the second best player of all time. We already know who number one is.
Well, I probably still put him third, maybe fourth, but yes, he's definitely in the top five. No questions asked.
So we'll get that. That's another debate for another time.
Yes, but speaking of basketball, one of the tracks that actually came out over the weekend was the Shaq and Kobe remix, which featured Meek Mill, Rick Ross, Shaq, and also Damian Lillard. And yo, I gotta say, this track was mad dope. Everybody brought it.
Yeah, it was a pretty dope track. Meek Mill and Ross, they dropped a single maybe about a month ago, I would say. They're working on a collaboration album that should be dropping in the next few weeks, which is highly anticipated. Rick Ross and Meek Mill, they've been kind of going through their things. Meek Mill, trying to be more independent and trying to get off of MMG and trying to do his own thing, which is cool because he's evolved and become a boss in his own right. But it's glad to see that the two are coming back together because I feel like we kind of needed this feeling and this type of energy that Meek Mill and Rick Ross are bringing on this track. And then it was dope that they even took it up to another notch where they brought in Shaq and also Damian Lillard to jump on the remix. It was dope to see Shaq and Damian Lillard jump on the track because I would say they're two of the best athletes turned rappers. So it was dope to hear them do their thing and on one of the hottest tracks that are out right now. So it was dope to hear them. What did you think about the song and how they did on the track?
The track was mad dope. It was like, typical Rick Ross vibes and Maybach Music vibes, which I fucks with. It's something that kind of grew on me as the years have gone on. But yeah, I really like the track a lot. And honestly, one of my favorite verses on the whole track, believe it or not, was Shaq's verse.
Yeah, Shaq did his thing.
I know, like, a lot of the times the basketball players that try to become rappers, it doesn't really work out and they're kind of like really out of their element. But with somebody like Shaq and also Damian Lillard to a degree too, these dudes are very in their element when it comes to these songs, and it feels like they belong and it feels like they fit in. And the more tracks they could put out like this, I'm more than happy to give them a listen. No doubt about it, son.
Yeah, they don't sound forced. Like we've had Iverson, Kobe, and a bunch of other even Lonzo Ball try their hand at rapping and they failed miserably. But when you hear Dame Dollar, like he's been dropping albums every offseason for the last 3-4 years. He's been dropping tracks and freestyles and projects or whatnot. So he's been pretty consistent and his music is pretty solid. And not just saying it just because he's an athlete, but as far as like as a hip hop artist, his music is pretty dope. And for Shaq, he's one of the originators of athletes turned rappers. He's been doing his thing since the 90s. And I even believe that he sold like a bunch of platinum albums back when he first came in the league when he was on the Magic. And he's done tracks with some of the heavyweights. Like not many people can say that they did a track with Biggie. And that's probably one of my favorite songs from athlete turned rapper was when Shaq jumped on a song with Biggie Can't Stand the Rain. I also believe Lord Tariq and Peter Guns were also on that track, which Shaq's always had a good relationship with them. So it was dope. Yeah, it's dope that Shaq has been one of the best at rapping, and he's been doing this for a long time. So I'm glad that Rick Ross and Meek Mill were able to bring them on and bring them on, do something different for a remix this time.
You want to know what one of my favorite Shaq raps were?
Which one?
The Kobe "Tell Me How My Ass Tastes."
Oh yeah, I remember that shit when him and Kobe were beefing. I remember that shit when he did that freestyle like in the off season one year.
Yeah, it was after the Lakers lost to the Celtics in the '08 finals. This is when Shaq was on the Suns.
Yeah, I remember that shit. That shit was funny.
You know how I be. Last week Kobe couldn't do without me. That's the difference between first and last place. Kobe, nigga, tell me how my ass tastes.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those lyrics these days. You get paused.
I'm a horse. Kobe ratted me out. That's why I'm getting divorced.
Yeah, that was funny. I wasn't his best, but it was pretty funny when that moment came up.
That's what I was gonna say. Shaq's a solid rapper, but the thing about Shaq that stands out the most with his rapping is just how entertaining he is. And that shit goes a long way. And in some cases, that shit is more important than being nice. Not that he isn't nice, but you catch my drift.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, Shaq always had a fun, easygoing personality. So it was fun to see him in that element. But like again, he's like one of the best athletes turned rappers, and it was dope to hear him on this track. So we'll see if they come out with any other songs from here. But it was dope to hear Shaq back in his element.
I remember when Shaq and Damian Lillard actually battled a couple years ago.
They battled in what? They came out with songs against each other.
Yeah, like 4 years ago, I remember them going back and forth. They were actually both killing it. I remember Damian kind of had the edge on him a little bit, but it was still entertaining.
Yeah, so shouts out to Shaq and Damian Lillard jumping on the Shaq and Kobe remix. It was good to hear them, especially with opening night of the NBA season. It was dope to hear them on the same track.
But what's not so dope about the NBA right now is some of the legal trouble they're kind of getting into, as they are now under investigation by the Department of Justice for violating antitrust laws. And the way they did that was by sabotaging and messing with the growth of the Big Three League run by Ice Cube. And yeah, this isn't a good look, bro. Kind of comes off as petty in the NBA's case when you really think about it.
Yeah, it is highly petty. I feel like the NBA and the Big Three should be working together. I don't know why they're at odds. I don't know why the NBA is trying to be so greedy and trying to block the Big Three from growing. I don't feel like the Big Three is a competition to the NBA. They're totally different leagues. The NBA is what the NBA is, and the Big Three is more for like retired players or players who just not in shape enough or not young enough to still compete at a high level in the league. So my idea would be to, if they can join forces together, they can use the big three, kind of like I wouldn't say, kind of like a minor league system, but not like the G League. I would say the G League could be more for like younger players. And then imagine if the big three was around when Carmelo was going through his thing. Maybe Carmelo could have went to the big three and showed everybody, yo, I could still ball. And then maybe, a team could have picked them up. So I can see like players like that who could still play, who the NBA think that they can't play anymore, they can't help a team out. But I feel like the big three, if they work together with the NBA, can be kind of a pipeline, for like older veteran players, to still be able to play and maybe work their way back into the league if a team needs some help. So I feel like I don't understand why the NBA is blocking their progress, and I feel like they can work together and make both leagues move forward.
I think I know why they're blocking their progress, and it comes down to one word: greed. Motherfucking greed. Always, when it comes to business, that's the main shit that gets people in trouble and makes people act out of character. And in this case, the NBA is big time acting out of character, where they're trying to squash a league that doesn't even run during the same time of the year as they do. That's not even direct competition to them. And they're doing this by like keeping them from getting sponsors, keeping them from getting investors, and even keeping them from being broadcast on certain channels. And I just ask myself, like, why is the NBA so butthurt about a Big Three league that doesn't even like directly affect them or even take money out of their pockets? So yeah, like the way they're behaving and the way they're acting in this situation is mad soft, and I feel like they need to get over themselves and actually, like you said, work together with them, and they can both profit. But by doing this kind of petty bullshit, they're not coming off well.
Yeah, it's not a good look. I don't know what the NBA has with Ice Cube and the Big Three, but like I said, they should try to find a way to find a happy medium where the both leagues can benefit. And I feel like they go hand in hand. I don't know why it's such a big deal. Why the NBA is trying to block them from growing. I don't think it's any competition. I just feel like it's something that can enhance both brands.
Yeah, and like I said, like they don't even run during the same time of the year. It's like no different than the WNBA, which also runs during the summer. And I give credit to Ice Cube. He's done a great job in building this league over the past 6 years or so. And yeah, it's given other players who are like retired or on their last legs like a chance to, still contribute and, still participate in their art. So like if the NBA doesn't want them anymore and the NBA is not trying to use them to their full potential anymore, they have the big three to fall back on. But with this kind of behavior and these kind of actions, they're making it even harder for them in that case.
Yeah, the big three. It's not bad. It's a little different from the NBA. They have it's like a 3-on-3, and they also have like 10 pointers, which kind of reminds me of NBA Jam. And then they have like a lot of the old players as coaches, like Charles Oakley and Steven Jackson was a coach, I believe. So there's a lot of Clyde Drexler is involved, Iverson is involved. So a lot of like the older players were involved in the big three. So I don't understand why the NBA is trying to block them. But I would say if you get a chance to check out the Big Three celebrity game last year, Gilly the Kid was playing, and is a very entertaining celebrity game. So I would say it's probably one of the most entertaining celebrity games. Gilly the Kid was talking mad shit, and it was just hilarious to watch him play and interact with the other players. So if you can, go on YouTube and check out the celebrity game. It's definitely a must watch.
That's what's up. Watch LeBron when he retires go to the big three just to stick it to them.
No, I don't think so. I think LeBron
How
is. I
funny
think
would
is
that be?
too big for that. LeBron is too big for the big three. He'll probably start his own league.
I know, I'm just talking shit. But yeah, hopefully the NBA kind of like maybe learns a lesson from this trouble they're getting into and this bad publicity they're getting, and kind of comes to their senses and maybe starts working with them and making both of them a lot of money as opposed to just making themselves a bunch of money while splashing on the little guy.
Yeah, so hopefully they can work out a deal and come together. Be better for basketball fans worldwide.
Yeah, Ice Cube even put out a tweet about it, talking about how he never wanted help from the NBA. He never wanted them to actually invest in the big three. But the one thing he's upset about is the fact that they're trying to spend money and go out of their way to squash the big three.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Something is not right. I don't know who he pissed off, but something just doesn't seem right. I don't understand why they're trying to block them.
Did Adam Silver like want to roll in one of his movies and he said no or something? And Adam Silver's like looking for revenge.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's the only logical explanation I can come up with.
So yeah, we'll just see how it plays out. So hopefully they'll come to an agreement.
Yeah, hopefully they do. Hopefully the NBA can get their head out of their asses and realize that these dudes are not hurting them. These dudes are not taking money from them. Calm the fuck down. All right, so moving on, Michael Irvin on a recent episode of Undisputed was opening up about the fact that his son, who goes by the name of Tut Tarantino, basically raps about a bunch of stuff that he doesn't do.
Sound like a lot of rappers these days.
Yeah, like he said, like he listens to his son's raps and he's like kind of just shakes his head and says like, son, like you grew up in a gated community. You never did any of this shit. Why are you rapping about the life that I lived and that you didn't live?
Yeah, it's weird. Just people glorify like poverty and hard times. Like if your family came up out of that and is living like a totally different life and is able to move forward, I don't know why people are going backwards. Should be trying to move forward and trying to bring people up and uplift them instead of talking about like stuff that's not even your life. I just don't get it.
I'm sure a big part of it is probably like his friends and people he hangs out with. That kind of influence is probably playing a part in it. And also the shit he probably sees on TV and sees on the internet. And as a kid, he probably thinks it's cool and he thinks it's dope. So he wants to follow along on that route. I mean, to a degree, my friends and I were also guilty of that in high school. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's still corny as fuck, don't get me wrong, but it makes sense. Like, it's not the first time I've ever seen this happen before, but damn, his dad really put his ass on blast, like in front of everybody, though. Holy shit.
Yeah, if he had any type of a career, it's definitely over with now after his dad called him out on national TV. So I think all of his street cred went out the window. So I don't see him coming back from this unless he's comes out with a different name. But his dad definitely blew up his spot with that one.
Yeah, that's as bad as like what 50 Cent did to Ja Rule, but damn, it's his own dad doing that shit to him.
Yeah, but I understand. I understand where his dad's coming from, though.
I get it,
As
yeah.
being a dad myself, yeah, I understand where he's coming from, and yeah, you don't want to promote that kind of garbage, like put that kind of stuff out there. Like that's not your life. Don't be glorifying the streets if you're not about that life or you never came from that life. So yeah, just not a good look. His dad's been in a lot of trouble, so I'm sure his dad doesn't want any negative energy coming towards him. He's had to deal with a lot just to get back on TV. When he was falsely accused of sexual harassment last year around the Super Bowl and got kicked off TV. So his dad just trying to stay walk a fine line and just stay out of trouble, and his son looks like it wasn't helping him out too much.
Nah, not at all. And I've always maintained, like, yo, if you live that life, if you were a part of that life, that's one thing. And even that, like, I'm not the biggest fan of the music per se, but especially when you're not about that life and you don't do that shit and you try to act like it's cool, it just comes off bad. Like, it just comes off unoriginal, inauthentic, and I just say to myself, get this shit out of my face now.
Yeah, just not a good look. Did you also hear about that 9-year-old rapper I was on the internet over the weekend?
Yes, I did watch the video of that little kid rapper. His name is like Lil RT. And yes, I did watch the whole video, even the remix with Doughboy. All I could say to myself is, what the fuck has the world come to?
Yeah, I've lost ever since COVID, man. Well, actually, let's go back a little bit. Ever since Trump's first election, like I don't know what's happened to society and the world. A lot of shit is upside down. Like it's crazy.
Oh, I'll go even further back. Ever since that 2008 economy crash.
No, that yeah, I get that, but I would say there's a very big difference in society and how the world is ever since that election. I don't know. People have gone crazy. People are at ends, and people just don't understand what's right from wrong anymore. Like the kid is younger than my son, and he's rapping, talking about hustling, shooting his ops, getting his little dangalang sucked. Like, bro, you can't, yo,
Get
you
the
mad
fuck
young,
out of here,
you too
man.
young to be talking about that kind of stuff. And like another thing that gets me upset is like, who's the people behind the scenes promoting this shit? Like, I understand that in the hood it's different, that you're gonna have kids or people who are, that's how they are because that's how their environment is and that's how they're raised. I understand that. I get that because my families came from hard times also, and I've seen the struggle that some of my friends and other family members had to go through. But just to kind of promote this type of behavior or this type of activity in our society is not a good look. And then on top of that,
Especially
like
at
what is
that age.
especially that age. And then what is the message you're sending to other little kids from that area or little kids who hop on YouTube or on social media and see a 9-year-old rapping, talking about this and that? It's just not a good look. And just I noticed a lot of these rappers that they rap and glorify this lifestyle, they don't even live this lifestyle. Like if you ever heard Future talking about doing lean and taking all these drugs, but he said in an interview himself, like he doesn't even do that stuff. He doesn't even take those drugs, but everybody thinks he does. And then even Kodak Black said on Drink Champs the other day that he's on that song Super Gremlin that he said that the bar sounded pretty dope, but he kind of regrets saying it. He's like, I know the perk was fake, but I still ate it. So even he understands like he shouldn't have said that. He has some remorse from saying that, but at the end of the day, he still said it, and it's one of the most popular songs that's came out in the last few years. And little kids listen to these lyrics, and they go and say, "Oh, Kodak said it, or Future said it in the song, then it must be cool." Now they're hearing this 9-year-old say it, and these little kids at school might think it's cool to start, doing drugs or doing whatever else they're gonna do. So it's not a good look. We just got to do better, man. Like as a society, I don't knock anybody trying to make money or trying to get out the hood. I understand it's tough times and you got to do what you got to do. But this just ain't it. It's not the way to go about getting out of that situation.
Yeah, and it's not even just the fact that, like, they're talking about stuff they don't do and promoting a lot of like negative and toxic bullshit. The biggest thing that bothers me the most, the music isn't even good. Like that
Yeah.
song with that little RT kid, I heard that shit for 2 minutes. I'm like, yo, are you fucking serious? Really? Like you actually approve this shit getting released out to the public?
Yeah. Well,
Like
there's market.
yeah, bro, this is a far cry from the kid rappers we grew up with.
Yeah, there are going to be rappers who rapping about hustling and doing that at a young age. I understand that, but there has to be some type of a balance. Like at least when we were growing up, there were kid rappers, but they were speaking about how fly they were, how they were better than this person and that person, or just talking about fun or these
Kid
kid rappers
stuff,
were
kid
talking about
stuff,
they were talking
kid
about kid
stuff.
stuff, fun kid stuff, like at the playground, like Another Bad Creation. That was one of the first kid groups that I remember listening to. They had that song at the playground, and
Aisha,
also Aisha. So those were pretty big singles. We also had Crisscross with Jump, which is another fun song.
Also, we had Chia Lee, that song Girls Ain't Ready, with the KRS-One sample for the hook. Yo, that song was mad dope.
Yeah, that was a dope song. And there's even other groups that came out. Like there was Illegal, which was those two kids that had a song "Let's Get Busy" with Eric Sermon. I was pretty dope. And then we also had Shaheem, which was affiliated with the Wu Tang. I know you remember him if you see him, but Shaheem was pretty popular. He actually even starred in some movies too, from what I remember. But yeah, Shaheem was pretty dope. And then also A plus. I don't know if you remember the A plus on the Lost Boys album on that song "Beast from the East" with Redman and Cannabis. Like he was
I gotta
one of the
hear it
rap.
again.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to it, I remember A plus. But those were some dope like kid rappers that came out when I was growing up, and they weren't rapping about like their ops and hustling and doing that. They were just talking, like I said, they were just talking about how fly they were and how much, how skilled they were and this and that and kid stuff. They weren't talking about like, things that are going to bring our society back. It's just not a good look for the culture to be promoting those type of songs.
Yeah, like especially at that age, at 9 years old, you have like 9-year-old kids talking about this shit. Like, what's gonna happen when the kid is like 15 and 16 and he gets older? Like, that's a bad place for him to start. And I just feel like, just in general, kids should, like, regardless of where kids are from or where they live, or whatever neighborhood, kids should be encouraged to stay kids as long as they can, and like, and do kid stuff and live the kid life as long as they can, because once that kid life is gone and you're an adult and you have to do adult shit, it's a wrap. A 9-year-old kid should be doing 9-year-old kid stuff, like playing basketball, hanging out with friends, playing video games, and things along those lines. Fun kid 9-year-old stuff. And yeah, 9-year-old kids specifically, or any kid that age, does not need to be living the street life or participating in the street life or promoting the street life on a fucking song at that. And I don't necessarily blame the kid themselves, because fucking kid doesn't know any better. I just mainly blame the people who
Yeah,
raise the
adults
kid,
around
the
them.
people who
Yeah.
encourage the kids to do this bullshit.
Yeah, it's not all the kid's fault. He's only just a product of his environment. So it's
Nine
up
years
to like
old.
it's up to the adults around them. But what happened to the kids like in the Nas I Am video? What happened to those kids? Well, I can. What happened to the kids that were in the Nas I Can video? Like what happened to those kids?
They grew up.
They grew up, but I don't understand like what's going on. Why are we promoting this? Why is this like a topic? Like I just don't get it, man.
Well, actually, that dude Doughboy, the one he did the remix with, he actually opened up about like all the criticism the song is getting and all that, and he basically said that kids who play video games like Call of Duty say shit that's a lot worse than what the kid said in the song.
I
That
I understand kids they go crazy in those Fortnite chat or Call of Duty chat rooms, but still you don't promote this. You don't just put this out there for more kids to see and to consume.
And also, his other excuse was the fact that, the kid rapping now is going to be a way for him to get out of the street life and like set up a future for himself. And he may be doing that street stuff now as a kid, but this will be like a way for him to eventually not have to do it anymore. And he ended the quote saying, "If you have a problem with this song, you can suck my dick. Go fuck yourself."
Wow, that's
What a
crazy.
mature response. What a mature response.
That tells you everything that you need to know, man. So I don't know, man. I'm just praying for the best that everything works out for this kid because I just don't want to see him, dead or locked up. Because that's normally, what happens when you're trying to promote this type of lifestyle. You put that type of energy out there. So hopefully we can have some maybe like a new kid artist come out that's more positive and it, talks about other things. But we don't need more kids talking about this. We already have enough adult rappers talking about this kind of stuff, so we don't need kids to be adding more fuel to the fire and encouraging other little kids to do the same. So let's try to cut the head off and nip this in the butt before it becomes we start seeing more and more artists like this.
Hey, look, admittedly, a lot of our favorite rappers when we were growing up, talked about a lot of negative shit and promoted a lot of negative shit. Even Biggie and Nas, as much as we love them, they also talked about a lot of street shit that they would do that, you can't really justify and you can't really condone. But it felt like with them and other rappers being an example, they were talking about that stuff that they used to do, but they were still like in their real lives trying to get away from that and, grow up. But with a lot of these rappers now, when they talk about that shit and promote that shit, it just feels like they haven't grown up and they're not even trying to grow up.
Yeah, those rappers, they were more so telling the story of how they came up and what they had to do to survive. this just sounds like they're promoting negativity and bad energy. So just totally different spectrums.
Yeah, like you said, back then they kind of like had more of a purpose to what they were saying, even if you didn't agree with all of it. Like NWA is probably the most prime example of that. I mean, look, I didn't agree with a lot of the things they said. A lot of it did admittedly rub me the wrong way. But the thing I respected about them was that they were telling the truth and that they were talking about their real life experience. So even if I don't agree with what they're saying and the way they may come off about it, if that was their real life and if that was their real experience, what else do you expect them to talk about?
Yeah, that's they were just painting the picture of how it is in the hood and how it is coming up in poverty. So I understand it. I understand the struggle and I understand, the dream of getting out, but there's just a way to go about doing it without bringing our culture down at the same time.
Yeah, it just feels like every year it just gets worse. Like I know that negative image always existed back in our era, but it just feels like as the years go on, it just gets more negative, more toxic, and the music just sucks more at that too, which is the worst part.
Yeah, I just feel like there's no balance. Like, yeah, there's the ratchet, the ignorant shit, but there's not enough conscious stuff that is being promoted and putting out there. I feel like the record labels and everybody, it's all about money and how many views and clicks that you can get instead of what they're doing as a society. Like, look at these phones and these electronics. Everybody's addicted to them, and these notifications and these companies are just doing more and more things to get us more hooked to the food, to these gadgets and whatnot. So we just got to do what we can to try to, reverse this and not try to damage the culture anymore and try to have a balance of good and evil.
Yeah, and also more than anything, just be careful of all the information you consume and all the content you consume on social media because a lot of it is just very toxic, very negative, and will lead you down a bad path and it'll just make you a douchebag in the process. I hate to say it, but it definitely seen it happen a lot.
Yeah. So let's hopefully this is a learning experience for them, and let's see if this little kid can change his ways and be more of a positive influence on the youth.
Definitely. So switching gears, Jay Z recently was doing an interview with Gayle King, and some of the things that actually stood out from the interview was when he talked about where he got the name One Take Hold from. Basically, how we broke it down was that back before he made it, back when he was still on the streets hustling, you had to record songs through tapes, and like if you messed up and if you made a mistake, it would be a pain in the ass to do it over again. So that's why he made sure he was extra prepared and extra on point with his recording so that he wouldn't have to do it over again and go through that process anymore. And then he also mentioned that as he got more into the street life, he was writing down his raps a lot less, and he would just kind of memorize them in his head when he'd be out hustling, and then when he would get home he would write it down. After a while, the more he did that, the more stronger his memory became, so that made him had less of a need to write the raps down and like most rappers would do. So over time, that's kind of how his memory built up, and how we know him now as the person who can record songs without writing them down and have them all all in his head. And the main thing he did say at the end of that quote was that he doesn't recommend that strategy for everybody because he did admit that he did lose a lot of music with that strategy. Damn.
Yeah.
Wonder what songs he
Ho-
did lose.
well, Hov is definitely a genius, and you can see why he's anybody's top five. Like he has to be up there in the top three, top two. He's definitely up there, and he's just a genius when it comes to writing and putting songs together. It sucks that we didn't have phones back then or any cell phones where you could just write your bars in your phone rather than forgetting it. Because I'm sure we missed out on a lot of timeless music that Hove could have put out. He did put out he's put out a lot of songs over his stellar career. But imagine someone like he could have probably even had some more hits that he probably forgot about or kind of lost track of what happened. So it's dope to hear his perspective on how he put his music together and how he influenced like Lil Wayne and some other artists that came after him to be the same way, where they just go in one take and they record the whole verse. But shouts out to Hov for being a perfectionist, working hard on his craft, because I know it takes a lot of practice to get to that level, and also to train your brain to be able to remember those bars and to go in and go into the booth and spit it the way he had it, the way he thought about it in his mind. So just shouts out to a genius and a pioneer, in his game. So Hov is going down is definitely one of the greatest ever.
Oh, he definitely deserves those flowers. And even as somebody who raps themselves and has been doing it for 20 years, I can definitely testify to how hard it is to memorize a song that you even wrote down. But the fact that he's able to memorize like all these crazy ass tracks, these fire ass tracks, without writing down one single word, that shit is genius level. No matter how much of a fan you are of Jay Z or not a fan of Jay Z, you definitely have to give him props at least for that because that shit is special. That way of recording, that way of getting your product out there is special. So shout outs to Jay for that. And also in this interview, Jay Z did mention the fact that he does want to make music, but it has to be important and that he has to have something important to say and it has to mean something to a larger society.
Yeah, I feel him on that. Like he's dropped so many albums, and when he does get on the track now, it is meaningful. Like he did get on that DJ Khaled Gods and did like a 6 minute verse, which went on like for days. And I think he memorized that one too, from what I remember, from what I heard when he was putting that song together. So he's to a level where he doesn't have to put music out. It's more of the fans like pressuring him to put things out. So if he puts music out, that'll be dope to hear him. But anytime Hov does come out and come out with a verse, it is memorable verse. It's not like a verse he's just putting out there to put out there. Like it's gonna be a verse that's gonna hold some weight, and it's gonna be one of the most popular verses in the culture. So hopefully we can get a new project from Hov. That would be dope because I know 4 for 4 came out like a while ago now, and that was more of like I would say more of like a retirement album because he touched on a lot of things that in the hip hop culture we didn't really touch on prior to that album. He touched a lot about on homosexuality, and just a lot of things with his family life and a lot more grown up type of music and type of topics. So it was glad to hear him on a different vibe. So we'll see if he gets inspired and comes out with another album.
Yeah, Jay Z even also said in that interview that he can't really, declare that he's retiring again because he already did that 20 years ago. So now he's kind of like just.
He did that 4 times already. He's retired like 5 albums.
Yeah, the main time he retired though was 2003, the Black Album. That was like the main one that got all the publicity, the big concert, and all that jazz.
And it came out a year later.
No, it was 3 years later.
I felt like a year later he came out with another album. So.
He was still like doing guest verses on songs and all that. That's probably why you thought he was still out. But he didn't actually have another album until Kingdom Come, which is in 06, which I'd like to forget.
Yeah, that album was okay. It was okay.
All right, but anyway, yeah. So it's funny. Yeah, he said like he can't really announce his retirement again because he already did that. So he's just gonna make music whenever he feels like it. And I respect that mentality. In a way, I kind of wish he adopted that mentality more like when he was in his prime. Because we even said like there were certain Jay-Z projects like, during his career that, we weren't fans of and that kind of felt forced. So I'm happy that at least now in this stage, like he's adopting more of that mentality. I mean, obviously he doesn't need to do music anymore, but whenever he does come out with something again, I think it will be something worth listening to. I think ever since Blueprint 3, I think he's been on a consistent streak with the quality of his shit he's come out with.
Yeah, he's definitely dropped a lot of heat. The stuff that he does put out, like I said, is very memorable. He doesn't just put out anything, and his songs are saying something. They have substance and they have meaning behind it. So he's just not just throwing out tracks. So let's just let him do his thing. He's enjoying his family. His Beyonce's on tour, killing it. So he's just doing his thing, enjoying life, and he doesn't have to put out another song. Like he's already done everything he's needed to do. He has all the awards, all the accolades. Like what else is there for him to really do? So I get where he's coming from. If he's going to come out with something, it has to be something monumental, something that's going to shake the culture.
Like Watch the Throne did.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Hov gets inspired and decides to come out, with some new music. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and speaking of Hov, Damon Dash recently did an interview and he actually opened up about the fact that he would be willing to talk and work things out with Jay-Z in the future if the time ever came.
Of course he's willing to talk to Jay-Z. Look at where Jay-Z's at since Rockefeller broke up, and look at Dame Dash. He's been, hasn't really made much noise business, as far as like on the levels Rockefeller did since they parted ways. So of course he would want to settle his differences with Jay-Z. Maybe he can get put back on. But I know from what I've seen and heard in interviews, Dame Dash is a very stubborn person, and hard headed and in his ways. So we'll see if they ever will have a sit down and reconcile. And
You're being nice when you say all that about him. That dude is a douchebag. That dude is a douchebag and a half. Like if you ever see any of the clips of his meltdowns and his like rants against people and all that online, I get that he's a businessman. I get that, you have to be that way to a degree when you are in charge, but that kind of behavior, that kind of approach, and considering where he's at now, it's clear that that shit does more harm than good.
yeah, I'm sure with his personality, he rubbed people in Rockefeller the wrong way. That's most likely why they haven't mended their issues over the years. So yeah, Dame Dash, the way his personality is, he had to be somewhat that way in order to get things done. When you're in business, you got to be strong and you got to be hard headed and you got to fight for what you believe in. So I felt like part of his personality did help him and and the rest of the crew build up the Rockefeller, but at the same time, it could have damaged some relationships in the process. The way that he is.
I know you probably saw that clip from years ago where I think Jay-Z called a meeting with everybody from Rockefeller behind Damon Dash's back. And then when Dame Dash like found out about it, he came into the meeting and like just flipped out on everybody and yelled and screamed at everybody and like kicked people out. Like that being one example. And also the infamous scene from backstage when he gets upset at the fact that they get Def Jam jackets instead of Rockefeller jackets. And for like 10 minutes straight, he's like going on and on about why the jacket doesn't say Rockefeller on it, why it only says Def Jam on it. And hey, I get it. It's a fair point. I understand, like the argument, but just ranting and ranting on about it and having a meltdown about it and like insulting people and talking down to people about it. After a while, that approach and that way of going about doing business is going to crumble and it's going to leave you with very few allies, very few friends, and with not much to show for it in the end. And looking at where he's been ever since him and Jay-Z broke up, it's clear to see that that approach in many ways probably was the reason for his downfall. And also the downfall of their relationship at that.
Yeah, we don't know the real reason of why they broke up or why they went their separate ways. We can only speculate of what we saw in interviews and behind the scenes and documentaries and whatnot. Let me ask you, when did Backstage come out? Like 97, around that time? And the Hard Knock Life tour, when was that?
The movie Backstage came out in 2000. The actual tour happened in 99, but the movie came out in 2000.
Right, and the Backstage was based on the Hard Knock Life tour,
Yeah, it was
right?
behind.
With DMX,
Yeah, it was behind this.
everybody on
Yeah, it was
there.
behind the scenes of the whole
Saul.
tour. I think I sent you the clip the other day. They get like jackets, they say Def Jam on them and not Rockefeller on them. And yeah, he just flips out. He just fucking loses his mind for like 10 minutes straight. And after a while, you're just like, yo, shut the fuck up already. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I get it, but I understand when looking at it from a business perspective, I understand where Damon is coming from because Rockefeller was holding Def Jam up at that time, was a big part of Def Jam at that time. And for Rockefeller to put everything together for that tour and Def Jam was trying to sneak in and take some of the credit away from them. I understand where Damon's coming from, especially him trying to build up a dynasty at that time. And Rockefeller was making a lot of noise and they wanted to keep all that stuff in house and not let the label get the benefit of all of their hard work. So I understand where he was coming from. As far as him going overboard the rants, that's just not how he is. He may have crossed the line and went a little bit too far, but I understand his point of view and where he's coming from with that.
The one thing I can see, like, although I wasn't there and I don't know all the details, I can maybe see that maybe Jay-Z started to see like this behavior in Damon Dash, like, get worse as the years went on. And after a while, like he got tired of it. And after a while, like he wanted to distance himself from it. So in that regard, I could maybe see why Jay-Z maybe wanted to cut ties with him. Because yeah, just dealing with that shit for so long and having to be around someone who behaves that way for so long, whether they're a business partner, whether they're a family member, whether they're your significant other, after a while that shit just gets draining and it gets tiring and it just kind of, and after a while it's sad to say you just don't want to be around that person anymore because people like that just carry around too much negative energy, regardless of whether or not they're fighting for the right cause or they have valid points in the points they bring up. Like that approach, that attitude, that behavior, it just breeds negative energy. And if you're somebody who doesn't want to be around that shit, then I can understand why they would want to distance themselves from them.
Yeah, I feel you. Well, Hove, he hasn't really spoken much about about Dame Dash or Rockefeller. the breakup and whatnot. So I guess we'll never know, until maybe Jay-Z wants to do a book to talk about the Rockefeller days, or if he decides to do a doc later on. But I guess we'll never know. So we just gotta go off what we saw in interviews and documentaries and whatnot. So hopefully one day they can come and sit down together and kind of hash things out and come together in the name of hip hop. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny, but Jay Z did actually give Damon Dash a shout out, like during this award he was getting not too long ago. He like mentioned that him and Dame had their differences and they don't see it eye to eye, but he like gave him his flowers for the success of Rockefeller, like especially in those early years and like for everything he contributed to that. So I respect Jay for that. I give him credit for saying that when he didn't necessarily have to. But regardless, I know I've kind of like clowned on Damon Dash throughout this some talk, but I do have to give him credit though. He definitely deserves a lot of props for like those early years of Rockefeller and how it became like the powerhouse that it did. He definitely played a huge role in that. Whether I agree with some of the ways he went about things or not, you can't argue with a lot of the results he produced in the process. So that I will definitely give him credit for. He also dated Aaliyah too.
Yeah, you got to respect him for his business savvy and help building, the dynasty and Rockefeller. Him and Jay Z, they have the issues, but it was dope, having Jay at least, shout him out and pay him his respects. I know they have their differences, but I'm sure Jay Z still appreciates him, being a figure that helped Jay Z get to where he's at now. So shouts out to Dame Dash, shouts out to Rockefeller and Hov for everything that they contributed to the culture.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the all-time greats in hip-hop, Styles P, will officially be retiring soon. And to commemorate his retirement, he's going to be doing a tour called Respect My Legacy, which is actually going to be making a stop in New York next month, which will feature probably Jadakiss and the whole Locks crew, among other people. And Styles P just basically said that in the years that he's been in the game, for the amount of like albums he's put out compared to most artists his age, he's definitely put out a lot to the point where people have enough of it to enjoy for a lifetime, and that he also doesn't need to put out any more. He's hanging it up just like we talked about with T.I. last week, and he's gonna focus on a lot of his outside projects, specifically like the juice shops he has in Yonkers and all the help, and also his own line of peanut butter and jelly that he has. Of all the people, all the rappers we grew up with, who would have ever thought that Styles P would be someone who's like vegan and health conscious? It's nice to see how he's grown up also. I really fucks with the way he's turned out too. And I salute his retirement. I'm looking forward to the last album. Hopefully I can maybe go to one of his shows for his last tour. And yeah, more power to him. Shout out to Styles.
Yeah, shouts out to Styles P. I got a chance to meet him a few years ago at a concert that he did down in Miami. It was dope. He's really down to earth and mad cool. I even told him that I've been a fan since he came out with Last Days on the Biggie album. So it sucks to see him go out, but I understand he has a lot of other business ventures going on. As you mentioned, he has the Juices for Life, and he also has his pharmacy website, the Pharmacy for Life, where he sells a lot of like supplements and like sea moss and a lot of other supplements that are good for your health. So shouts out to Styles for the growth coming from the gangster to becoming a gentleman, as he would say. So shouts out to Styles P. He's one of the greats in the hip hop industry. He's part of one of the best trio rap groups of all time. And he's dropped a lot of dope projects over the years, from his mixtapes to his solo albums. So he's just done a lot of dope things, and it's just good to see him grow and, move into the next phase of his career. So if you get a chance, definitely check him out on tour. He puts on a good performance, and he even jumps into the crowd and likes to feel the energy from the people and the fans. So he's definitely a dope artist and will be highly missed from the industry and the culture.
I hope he has vegan options at his shows too. Be a huge plus.
If you ever, you should check out his website, Pharmacy for Life. You might find
I,
some vegan or some stuff that on there that you might be able to take.
Honestly, the next time I go to New York, I think I want to go to his juice shop. I think I want to go to Yonkers just to check out his juice shop.
Now that I think about it, I want to say that he might have sold his ownership stake out of it, but I got to look that up. But I want to say that he's no longer doing the juice thing. He's just solely focusing on the pharmacy, and that website. So he might not be doing the Juices for Life anymore. He might be doing some other stuff.
I want to use Styles as an example about the way he's changed and the way he's grown up, especially like, from the Styles we knew when we were kids to seeing him now. Anybody can change. If anybody tells you that people can't change, changing is impossible, just look at Styles P. Look at Styles P.
Yeah, Styles P has come a long way. Shouts out to him. What are some of like your highlights, or some things that you look back on his career that you loved about him, and maybe some albums or some songs, something, anything that about Styles P that stood out to you over his career.
Oh, I'm so happy you asked that question. Obviously, Last Days from Life After Death, that's one of them.
Okay.
Also, will always love Big Papa. You could definitely tell that like him and Jadakiss especially had a real bond with Biggie. Even though it was kind of brief because they like met him kind of right before he died, you could definitely tell that like Biggie meant a lot to them. Also, Niggas Done Started Something. His performance on that was fucking fire.
Yeah, that song, that whole everybody on that song was spitting, but that was a DMX song for the most part.
Yeah, but still,
On
he
the
was still a
style.
part of it. He still contributed to it.
Yeah, he did it. Definitely did his thing on that song. I'm talking about more like style, like solo styles, not like styles like featured on other people's stuff. I'm talking about like Styles P himself.
That song, Y'all Fucked Up Now on We Are the Streets, he bodied it. He fucking bodied it on that one.
Yeah, he did his thing.
Yeah, because each of them on We Are the Streets got a solo song, and Y'all Fucked Up Now was his solo song that he had on there.
I want to say Jadakiss was on that song too.
Jadakiss's solo song on that album was Blood Pressure, and then Sheik had that Bring It On, Come On shit.
Yeah, Sheik wasn't the greatest, but I do give him props. He did step his game up over the years and became much more tolerable over the years. When he first came out, he was
All right, but yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, Y'all Fucked Up Now, but I have to say overall, Gangster and a Gentleman as an album is one of the best hip hop albums you will ever hear. And hands down, the best hip hop album that came out that year, 2002. And the only one that I would say ties it is The Fix from Scarface.
Yeah, the Scarface album was pretty dope. But yeah, that first
Pretty dope. It was great.
yeah, it was great. It was a great album. Just the Styles P Gangsta and the Gentleman was a pretty sick album. Had a lot of songs on there. I think it was over 20 tracks. And I remember that
Yeah,
song.
24 tracks in
I
total.
remember that song. I think it was him, J Hood, and Sheik when he was talking the perspective of him being a gun. Well,
Nobody believes me. Oh,
yeah, no,
fuck.
nobody believes me. Yeah,
Nobody believes me. Ooh,
yeah, that song was pretty dope.
ooh,
How they had the three different perspectives.
ooh.
Yeah, that was a dope track. Yeah, he had a whole bunch of songs, man. I'm Black was another one that was slept on. He had a lot of stuff on his mixtapes, like around like the 2004, 2005. That around that time, he had a bunch of mixtapes with Big Mike. Shouts out to Big Mike, who was big heavy in the mixtape game back around that time. But yeah, he came out with the Ghost in the Machine, the Ghost in the Shell, the Phantom Menace, all those mixtapes where he was freestyling to other people's beats. Like there was that song "Switch My Style" that he got on the that Tweet R&B song where he murdered that track, and then also when the Locks got into the beef with 50 Cent, it was kind of fun.
50.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to hear him, Jada, and she kind of go back and forth. With the Miss Jackson song, where Styles and Jada went back and forth, so there's a lot of fun songs that came out around that time when the Locks and G Unit were beefing. So I appreciate Styles P around that time for being a stand up dude and going after G Unit 50 Cent, because 50 Cent used to go out at everybody, and especially he used to try to go after people who wouldn't be on his level. But the Locks were the only crew that really like stood up to him and really gave him a run for his money and made 50 Cent kind of go back into a cave and kind of be quiet and kind of know who he's messing with. So shouts out to Styles P and the Locks for holding it down for the crew. He's gonna be definitely missed. I know the Locks are kind of slowed down over the years because they're getting up there and they got business ventures going on. So it just feels like it's the right time for him to step away.
Shout out to Styles P. That Gangster and a Gentleman album, like I said, is crack from start to finish. If you haven't heard it before, I know it's been 21 years. You need to listen to that shit right after you finish listening to this episode. That's how good that album is. From that song with Angie Stone, fucking Good Times. Good Times was a fucking hit back then. Good
Yeah,
Times, the Gangster and a Gentleman title track, Lick a Shot.
yeah, the whole album has some bangers on there.
Yeah, the I'm a Rough Rider song, and also that song we were talking about earlier, Nobody Believes Me. And also, My life is all I have. My rhymes, my pen, my pad. Yo, that shit at the end, holy shit.
Yeah, that was a
Yes.
dope track. And shouts out to J. Cole for kind of like recreating that song recently on his last album.
Yeah, shout out to Styles P, one of the greats in the game, and one of the greats outside of the game with the shit he's doing with, like, health food, and teaching people in the hood how to eat healthier and be healthier, and educating them on things they wouldn't be educated about otherwise. Yo, stand up guy. I fucks with Styles. Definitely fucks with Styles.
Yeah, definitely a stand up dude, and definitely won't be missed in the game. But hopefully he comes back here and there. Maybe a Locks album that comes out. But he just said that he's retiring from solo albums, so that doesn't mean that he might not drop another Locks album. Or, I would want a Styles and a Jada album, man. That was something I would want to hear. They've always every track that they do the back and forth, like We Gonna Make It, and a lot of shootouts and a lot of other songs that they did together. I would love to hear like a Styles and Jada
Made
album,
How could you
them
forget
going
Made
back and
Men?
forth. Made Man. What else? What was that?
The Keeping It
Damn.
Gangster remix.
Yeah, that too. But the song on Nori's album, Banned from TV. Yeah, that song when Styles and Jada were going back and forth. That was another dope one. But there's so many timeless verses from them too, and especially from Styles. So he's definitely going to be missed.
Yes, he will. And it was just great seeing them body Dipset in the verses 2 years ago. Everybody was saying that Dipset was gonna win and that it was gonna be no contest. And yeah, the Locks just had their way with them. That was probably the most one-sided verses I ever saw.
It wasn't even, you can't put anybody. The Locks are, I would say, one of the best trios, if not the best trio of rappers ever. The best group. I don't know. Other than Run, I'm probably people gonna say Run DMC. As far as my generation, I would say the Locks are my favorite trio.
I get it, and it's a different vibe because all three of them rapped, and Run DMC, not all three of them rapped. Jam Master Jay was the DJ, although an important
Right.
part of the group, he didn't rap.
Yeah, but he was like kind of like Spinderella for Salt and Pepper. He was, he
Exactly.
was just, yeah, was there in the background DJing and whatnot.
Or DJ Premier for Guru and Gangstar.
Yeah, that's one of the best duos ever.
Yeah, shout out to DJ Premier. And also, speaking, let's get into some upcoming hip hop releases, including one by Busta Rhymes, which will be coming out on Black Friday, and it's going to be called BlockBusta. I fucks with the title.
Yeah, I like the title, bringing back Blockbuster. Blockbuster was very popular when we were growing up. So yeah, Busta Rhymes is going to drop an album produced by Swizz Beatz, Pharrell, and Timbaland. So it sounds like a star-studded produced album, which sounds pretty dope. I just hope that it lives up to the hype, because sometimes when you have like such a star-studded lineup of producers, you expect like a five mic album or a banger album. So it's kind of setting the bar pretty high with making this announcement before the album drops. So hopefully his album is as good as advertised. Yeah, Busta's dropped an album a few years ago, which didn't really hit the mark like I thought it would. So hopefully he can bounce back with this new album. I know he's been on tour and then jumping on singles here and there. So let's see what he can do with this album. I haven't really liked the singles that have dropped too much. I think the Beach Ball song that came out with Bia like a couple months ago. So we'll see. If Swizz Beatz, Pharrell, and Timbaland can help bring that Busta magic back out.
Yeah, having them as producers definitely has me interested and very curious. And yeah, it has been a few years since we've heard like a real monster Buster project. I think the last like really good album he had was It Ain't Safe No More, and that was over 20 years ago.
Wow, that was wild. Didn't he come out with like the Big
2002
Bang?
also.
Yeah, the Big Bang and some of
Big
them.
Bang was cool too, but I wasn't on the same level as those other albums where like, like ELE and When Disaster Strikes, and yeah, also It Ain't Safe No More.
Yeah, well, one thing I did respect, or what I do respect about Busta over the years, is that he does put a lot into his marketing. And he does make his albums bigger than life. So that I always enjoyed that, and also with the visuals, he always liked to make the visuals stand out. So let's see what happens with this project. I'm looking forward to hearing it and seeing what we get out of Busta. Hope maybe we get some more classic music out of Busta.
Classic music, and maybe him and Hype Williams will do another classic video together.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. And other new projects that are coming out. I don't know if you heard, there's an R&B artist called Brent Fayez that dropped an album this past week. He has like Missy, Timbaland, kind of reminds me of of those days of when
Genuine.
that crew was, yeah, when that crew was doing their thing. So if you're into R&B, Brent Faiyaz dropped a fire R&B album, so I would definitely check it out if you get a chance to. Also, Jeezy is actually dropping an album on Friday. It looks like he left Def Jam, is no longer a part of Def Jam, and is going to be going independent. And the title of this album is I Forgive, But I Don't Forget. So it may be a metaphor for the divorce that he's going through with his wife. So be interesting to hear, what some of the topics and some of the things that he's going to talk about on this album.
I'll be checking out for both of those. Shout out to Jeezy. And also he's another dude who seems like he's grown up over the last few years. Like if you watch his most recent interview with Tamron Hall, he was talking about how like he started going to therapy and started to learn about like, patterns of his past behavior that he needed to, break himself out of and like learn why he did that and work through it. So shout out to him for putting in that inner work. That shit definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, you could see the benefits of the work that he's been doing. He squashed his beef with Gucci Man, so it looks like they're on good terms, and it looks like he's in a positive space. He dropped a book not too long ago. Unfortunately, he's going through a divorce with his wife, so hopefully they can come together and still do their thing for their kid. But just sad that things didn't work out. He hasn't been married that long, so maybe this new album can shed some insight of what was going on and his perspective of what happened.
Yeah, so check out for those projects. And also, before we get out of here, as of our recording of this episode, today is the 21-year anniversary of the tragic death of hip hop icon Jam Master Jay. He was brutally murdered at his studio in Queens, New York. And it's scary to think he was actually the same age as me when he died. Yeah, big loss for hip hop.
Yeah, it's sad to see him, pass away way ahead of his time. He was really, really young. And from my understanding, the person that actually, took his life was actually somebody that he knew, and he wasn't expecting, what happened to happen. So it's a sad day, 21 years ago that we lost an icon in this game, and he's truly missed. One of the, pioneers that helped push the hip hop culture into where it is now. So he's definitely missed, and it's just sad to see that he's not here to celebrate the 50 years of hip hop because his group, he was part of the group, one of the groups that helped push hip hop into the mainstream. So it's just unfortunate that he's not here to, to kind of celebrate and enjoy the fruits of his labor. So shouts out to him and his family and also the rest of Run DMC.
Yeah, they were definitely pioneers. He was a huge part, gigantic part of Run DMC's success. And the funny story I learned about him was that the reason why he joined Run DMC is because he always wanted to be a part of a band. And Run DMC joining them was his opportunity to do that. And also on the Raising Hell album, I don't know if you know, but he actually played a lot of the instruments on that album.
Yeah, Jam Master Jay wasn't somebody who was just in the background. He was actually helping put the songs together and helping the crew be what it is. So shouts out to Jam Master Jay and his contributions to the group.
Yeah, definitely a pioneer, gone too soon. I don't know if you saw the documentary they came out with about him on Netflix a few years ago. It really goes into like his murder and the whole case behind it. And yeah, you really learn a lot of the stuff that's kind of disturbing to learn about, and also stuff I've read about that I don't really want to repeat right now. And yeah, it's a very sad, very tragic story. And the two men who are actually accused of murdering him and also orchestrating his murder are going to be on trial starting next month.
Yeah, I thought they caught him. So yeah, and it was like I said, it was somebody that he actually knew, like an acquaintance or somebody who did regular business with. So
The details of that don't kind of paint Jam Master Jay in the best light, so I won't get too deeply into that. But yes, it was.
yeah, it was some kind of a deal gone wrong. So unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, unfortunate, gone too soon. Sucks it had to happen the way it did, and especially at his own studio with that. And yeah, one of the pioneers in hip hop who will not be forgotten, and may he rest in peace. Long live Jam Master Jay.
R.I.P. to a legend.
All right, bro. Anything else you want to get into?
That's about it, man. Let's wrap it up.
Since there's nothing else we need to talk about tonight, King Khan, why don't you let everybody know how people can reach us and people can listen to more episodes of the podcast?
If you want to check out some of our other episodes of the Shifting the Culture podcast, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also on TikTok at the Shifting the Culture podcast. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. to stay in the loop with any new drops that we have coming from the podcast. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else where you find your podcasts. Just type in Shifting the Culture Podcast and make sure to subscribe and to follow us for more.
Yeah, definitely holler at us. Let us know what you think about the show. And
shoot us any topics.
Yeah, any topics we could talk about along the way. So until next time, for King Khan, this is Conscious Kurt for another edition of Shifting the Culture. Take care. God bless. And whether you're an old school head or new school head, always respect the culture. Have a good one, guys.
Peace.